Good evening. Thank you for coming to the meeting of the Board of Trustees for November 4, 2014. We did have a hearing prior to our regular meeting where the Pledge of Allegiance was taken, so we'll move on to the agenda. Are there, for our first item is setting the agenda, any additions or corrections? There are not. Hearing that, I'll entertain a motion then to accept our agenda.
So moved. Second.
That motion is second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Section 2 is our consent agenda, which includes our somewhat typical items for the consent agenda. Are there any items, I'm sorry?
Audience participation.
Can't hear you.
Audience participation.
Oh, no, this one.
Yeah.
Are there members of the audience that would like to address any agenda items this evening? I see a hand.
Yes, on the balance calendar, when we get to that item 3.6.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience that wish to address agenda items? Thank you. Now, we'll move on to section 2, the consent agenda. Are there any items within the consent agenda a board member would like to pull out and consider separately? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion then regarding the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second to accept or approve the consent agenda as presented. Comments or questions?
I just make a comment. I noticed that Paul Costello is retiring as one of our bus drivers, and Paul's been there for many, many years. A lot of dedicated service and contributions, and I want to thank him and wish him all the best.
I filed a rescission of that today. I'm going to rescind that request, Mr. Pinkett.
I'm not aware of that, Paul. And sorry.
Okay, I understand your appreciation and enjoyed the many years I've worked with the board. And on second thought, I'd like to continue working with them and the kids who are part of my heart. Thank you.
Yes.
This time, I'm going to leave the retirement on the agenda to be voted on tonight. I will review the facts in the situation that Paul was involved in, and then I'll have him in and we'll have a discussion about any possibility of rehiring.
Any other questions or comments? With that, then we have motion and second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr.
Okay, item
Samuelson.
3.1.
Mr. Samuelson, before then, I think Mr. Condon is here with someone that would like to introduce.
Oh,
correct,
I'm
Mr.
fine.
Condon?
Sure. See, those are the reasons I asked for comments.
Thank you. I have with me tonight Lindsay Gorham, who I'm recommending for employment as a mathematics teacher at Plymouth High School beginning next school year. A little bit about Lindsay. She's a Cincinnati Bearcat, first one I've hired in my tenure as a principal. Of course, a mathematics teacher. She became involved in education through the Teach for America program. That took her to North Carolina, where she taught for 2 years. She has since relocated back to northern Indiana. She's currently working at Munster High School on a long-term leave. Just found that out. And she's accompanied this evening by her husband, Greg. So we welcome them, Greg.
Thank you. I look very much forward to this opportunity of working at Plymouth High School with Mr. Condon and getting to know everybody here. And I just thank everyone for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to say you're replacing a pretty good gal.
You're supposed to agree with that.
We're going to wait on that vote now.
Well, thank you for being here, and welcome to our community and to Plymouth High School. Anyone else? Thank you, Jim.
No problem, Jim.
I'm sorry?
I was thanking Michelle.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I think we can move to 3.1 under business transactions, which is our focus on learning. This evening, we have folks from the nominee.
Yes. On behalf of Menominee Elementary, I'd like to introduce two of our outstanding teachers, and Mrs. Garrity and Mrs. Snyder. And we've got 4 outstanding students here also. They're going to present some learning they've done with Smart Strengths. So I'm going to go ahead and let the teachers introduce those students, and they'll take it from there.
They're a little nervous, but they didn't realize there were so many people here tonight. And I told them not to worry, that everybody's grandmas and grandpas and moms and dads. So you're going to do great.
Thank you for inviting us to your meeting tonight. We're 4th grade students from Menominee Elementary. Our teachers are Miss Garrity and Mrs. Snyder. My name is Brandon Smith. My name is W. Rada. My name is Ellie Jones. My name is Davis Ray. Our teachers went to a training and learned about Smart Strengths, and they wanted to teach us about them. Smart Strengths help us see the good in ourselves and in our classmates. It helps us to be aware how others are different from ourselves. It helps us to be better team members within our classroom and school.
We discussed the Smart Strengths and what they were because we didn't know what some of them, like zest and authenticity, were. Then we went around the room and chose one best Smart Strength for each classmate on a piece of paper.
Before we took the test, we had a paper that had all kinds of Smart Strengths. We put a tally on the person's paper that we thought their Smart Strength was.
We presented our top strength that our class picked to the rest of the class. My personal example was my class thought that I was creativity, and I didn't see that as one of my strengths. Then we took the actual survey and got our results. Then we printed off our results and hung them up in the hallway. The class thought my Smart Strength was humor, and in the survey, it was humor.
My Smart Strength, everyone in my class thought my Smart Strength was creativity, but my Smart Strength was actually curiosity. My classmates thought my Smart Strength was love and kindness, but my actual Smart Strength was a variation of me.
My class thought my Smart Strength was creativity, but the survey said it was curiosity.
Then next we made a picture showing our results. We each made a selfie, then we got them according to our results. Our results were for curiosity, gratitude, humor, and bravery.
This will help in the future with our classmates because we know their personality better and we can better interact with them.
Maybe you could find out what your Smart Strength is.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments or anything that teachers would like to add to the presentation? It would seem clear that each of you have a strength of courage. It takes quite a bit of courage to get up in a room full of people that some you know, some you don't know. So thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule this evening to come and share with us. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on then. 3.2, consider bids for used computers.
That gets to be me tonight. So at the last meeting, you gave us permission to bid for our white MacBooks that we ended our lease with at Lincoln. We received 3 responses back, which are detailed in your packet. We would like you to consider the bid from Vintage Tech. There's some details in there. If you have any questions, Kenny and I can answer those for you.
You've heard the recommendation, I mean, just for communication, the bid from Vintage, in terms of dollars, $81,450, compared to $55,000 and $24,435. That's quite a
There's a little bit of a difference. So the lower 2 bids are for lump sum purchases. Vintage Tech has a grading scale, so the price of $81,450, I think it was, is for what they would consider all 543 machines being grade A, meaning perfect condition, no scratches, no blemishes, so on and so forth. So they'll do a reconciliation once they pick them up, give us a report back by serial number with pictures of an audit report. So for example, serial number 123 may have a cracked screen or a bad hard drive. They would show a deduction for that amount. So that price that you see there would be the absolute highest that we would get. And then once we get that reconciliation report, Kenny and I can go through it and either approve or disapprove which ones we don't consent.
Do we expect a lot of movement then, or take it below what? our
I
first price
don't
was?
think so, just based on the condition that they're in. I don't think we'll be up too much.
So you think that bid would still be above the second highest? I'm prepared to make a motion that we accept Vintage Tech's bid.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any other questions or comments? How long do we think this audit will take?
Actually, I talked to them today. Once they get them in sight in their facility, probably about 30 days.
30 days. Got a motion and second to accept the bid from Vintage Tech Recyclers, Romeoville, Illinois. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. 3.3, report on Riverside Lincoln Junior High ISO.
We have Mrs. Hershey, I believe will be starting to give her report on ISTEP, and then Mr. Galt will follow up with Lincoln Junior Highs.
Good evening. I'm here to present scores for our ISTEP for spring of 2014. If you look at, this is 5th grade math, and actually this graph shows us like from the onset of Riverside, and in some areas we've come a long way. And specifically in the last 3 years, we had an increase of about 3%. Last year we had 82.9% in language arts for 5th grade. In math, we had a 93.2%, which was about a 4% increase from the fall of 2012. I will say that in math in 5th grade, we had 136 students and Pass Plus. So that was an area that we're pretty proud of. In 6th grade language arts, we continue. That's where we've seen a decline a little bit in from compared to 2012 to 2014. We had 80.7% with 80 students Pass Plus. And in 6th grade math, we had 84.1%, 75 students with Pass Plus there, which was a slight decrease from 2012. In math, as far as growth data, we were labeled high growth and high achievement. So that's an area that we are proud of the things that we've put in place to try to achieve that. kind of our next steps in the next few weeks. Many of our staff are going to be involved in curriculum alignment, where they're going to be making some learning progressions. Last year, we started what we call our math, a daily math review, and we have mental math exercises, and we continue to work on problem solving in math facts. We're also are identifying, we're doing some work on this Friday with identifying students with low growth and what we can do to target those students, as well as we continue to focus on reading, writing, and discussing in each classroom. We adopted a few years back the Achieve 3000, so that's become kind of embedded in our program at Riverside. So students are using their computer where they are reading nonfiction, which is an area that we need to really work on, and answering some questions and discussing those. So, any questions?
Maybe I misunderstood. You mentioned this Riverside was considered high growth in math. Is that correct?
High
Is that
growth
as a
and high
building?
achievement as a building, 5th and 6th grade.
So the growth in 5th grade, is that, am I understanding that correctly, from previous year outpaced, if you will, the non-growth in 6th grade?
Growth is not based on the I-STEP scores, it's based on individual students, correct?
Their peer, compared to their
Okay.
peers. Yes.
But that's the piece, I guess, I wanted to flesh out a little bit, that I'm not sure everybody understands that well, and I'm not gonna explain it real well, but you're headed the way I was thinking.
As a
in terms
fifth
of-
grader, you take my score in math, and then as a sixth grader, then every student in the state that had the score I had
Same
in fifth
score.
grade, the same score, so let's say at a 550, which is pretty good for me. Then you take every student who had that 550 in fifth grade, and they look at what they did in sixth grade. If they went up, it's high growth. If they stayed the same, it's medium growth. If they came down, it's low growth. So there's absolutely no way that we can get a handle on how many kids there were that did that. We just get a report on whether Johnny was high growth, medium growth, or low growth. And they're going to change it, but for the next 2 years, they're still going to be they're going to be compared against each other, but themselves and other people in their peer group, but they're going to be using a different test each year. So I don't like the process now. I'm going to like it even less the next 2 years, but because we're tied into an agreement with the federal government on no child left behind waivers, we have to do it this way. So, grin and bear it, I guess, is what we have to deal with, and just do our best.
It's hard to predict. It's hard to calculate what kind of growth you're going to get. That's the flaw of it.
So one could have a perspective that the growth from 5th to 6th is as important or more important perhaps of comparing a 5th grade to another 5th grade where there's really, I'm not sure what value that is, but it is what it is. But
It is what it is.
I mean, there's some level of measurement that it can tell us that it's good. That's why I wanted to flesh out. That comment is not really what's here on the graph. That's an indication of growth from 5th to 6th as opposed to how do we compare one 5th grade to the other 5th grade.
Exactly.
Any other questions or comments?
And just say, in light of all that, Jenny, you and your staff are doing a good job.
Thank you. It's a good staff.
Good work.
Good staff.
Good evening. I'm here to present Lincoln Junior High's I-STEP data from the 2013-2014 school year. The first slide here represents our 7th grade students in English and language arts. We had 77.5% of our students pass language arts in 7th grade. Next, 7th grade math is this slide here, and 82.5% of our students passed, 7th grade students passed math last year. And our 8th grade scores in language arts, 79.9% of our students passed our language arts last year. 8th grade students passed language arts. And then the math, the next slide, which is 85.1% of our students pass our math. Okay, that's the trend has been that at Lincoln that math, we've always scored a little bit stronger in math than we have in language arts. And our next slide here talks about next steps. For Lincoln Junior High, we have an emphasis of close reading strategies and text-dependent questions in all classrooms. Those are two skills that are of immense importance in the new standards that are Indiana College and Career Readiness Standards, and that's being able to closely read text and then also answer questions that are using evidence from that text. We've also implemented humanities in both grades, and this is to promote relevant reading, writing, and discussing. Humanities is a combination of language arts and social studies, so that they're working on those language arts skills through relevant content, through historical content, and through a lot of reading that goes right along to the historical time in 8th grade or the world that they might be studying in 7th grade humanities. We also have ICP for all 8th grade students. That is a change in increasing the rigor for all of our students, and also an emphasis in math in ICP. So we are helping our students become more prepared.
What is ICP?
What is ICP?
ICP is integrated chemistry and physics. Sorry. And then implementation of the PCSC math plan in all of our math classes. Jenny talked about that, but that is a math plan that Tara Sharp, our math coach, has helped put in place for K through 8 in the corporation. And then lastly, max time interventions to target students who need more time and support. So through looking at our data, we have targeted the students who need more time and support with the Indiana academic standards. Although the standards have changed, a lot of those decisions are made on how they did last year with ISTEP. Any questions?
How long have we had ICP?
We've had it, this is the, I think, 3rd year. We had biology prior to that, and I'm thinking maybe my first year as principal, we went to ICP, and then it was for just about 98 graders at that time. This is the first year that all of our 8th graders will take ICP, and all potentially can get high school credit for that, which gets them that much closer to dual credit opportunities at the high school, which gets them that much closer to graduation of high school, but also college credit and graduation of college and a degree. So.
Okay, that was we're talking about next steps. I thought we had ICP, but you're talking about how all will be taking ICP. That is, we're changing who's taking it, or what is it?
All 8th graders now taking it.
That was not the case previously.
That was not the case previously.
I was wondering why that was the next step.
Yeah. Well, that's the next step in the emphasis of math, okay, and that higher level thinking.
This stems from several years ago, us looking at the 7th and 8th grade science standards, and we found that they were really a review of the 5th and 6th grade standards and kind of a preview of the biology class. And so we found that there was a lot of redundancy in the junior high curriculum and science. And so at the same time, we wanted to establish some way to get kids excited about science. And when you get kids excited about science, you also get a little excited about math. Because if you look at our upper level math and science classes at the high school, our numbers were not huge for a school of our size. And so, in doing so, that's the goal, to get kids really excited about getting into the math field, the science field, and exploring more. And as Reed said, getting the dual credits, and so it's an exciting time, I think, for our 8th graders. Some of them will not.
There might be some of them that
The high school
select not to take that credit, okay, to the high school. But the way I look at it is that those kids will be closer to getting that credit when they take it at the high school. They will have built that prior knowledge, okay, that background knowledge needed to be more successful in integrated chemistry, physics, other math classes as well, even if they choose not to take that credit. Now, why would they not take that credit? If it's below a C grade, they might not want to take that credit to them. That will be their choice and their parents' choice.
I'm struggling whether to make the next comment, but I'm going to make it anyway. I just become more fascinated by things that I remember taking well into my high school career, being done now at much lower level, not lower, but younger levels. I'm excited and concerned at the same time. I'm not a brain research guy, but at some point, there's got to be some, and I'm sure it's all been researched by people much smarter than I, that they're ready for those types of things, and the brain is mature, and whatever goes on in there is able to absorb and take all this stuff at a much younger age. But I obviously was not prepared for that when I was that age.
Sure, I remember you then.
It's not about me. I'm just fascinated by that. I'm wondering how young is too young for some of this stuff.
Well, we continuously look at ways to challenge our students.
Well, I'm all
okay,
for
so
that.
that we engage them and challenge them. And, I've often had that same thing. I mean, I didn't take any, it was called physical science at that time, and it was probably my sophomore year that I took the equivalent to that. I didn't take algebra until I was a freshman, okay? My daughter's on pace to having taken, by the time she goes to high school, geometry and algebra and ICP. We have kids that will leave Lincoln Junior High with as many as 5 credits, okay? They could have ICP, geometry, algebra, Chinese, and intro to ag, okay? All for high school credit. What does that do? I think that gives them more options when they get to the high school. More options to take things maybe they want to take, more options to get those credits in college. So,
I'm not being critical, I'm just fascinated.
Different, yeah.
Any other questions?
Good report. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I think then we're ready to move on to item 3.4, report on Plymouth High School ECA graduation rate, college and career readiness.
I think Mr. Kaufman's here to do that for us tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight to present some data from the past year at PHS. There are 4 pieces of information that I'll share with you. Each piece accounts for a percentage of Plymouth High School's letter grade that we will receive. But a disclaimer before I get into this, letter grades are under embargo right now, issued by the DOE, so I don't have an official letter grade to report to you at this time. For the presentation, we are going to look at Algebra 1 and English 10 ECA results for this year's junior class, the 2016 cohort. Then I'll share with you the 2014 graduation rate and their college and career readiness as defined by the DOE. Let's go ahead and start with Algebra 1. The 2016 cohort, this year's junior class, they first had the opportunity to take the Algebra 1 end of course assessment, ECA, in grade 7 at Lincoln Junior High. This is top 10% of the class. You can see that 27 students in the cohort participated and passed the ECA in grade 7. Taking a look at the same cohort in grade 8, there were 72 students, different than the 27 students who took it in grade 7, who participated in the Algebra 1 ECA in 8th grade. Of these 72, 66 students, 92% passed. So in total, 93 students from this cohort, current juniors, had completed this graduation requirement before they had come to PHS. At PHS, grade 9 is the level all students take algebra if they did not take it at the junior high. Remember that those 93 students, approximately 1/3 of the cohort, had already met this requirement, leaving the remaining 2/3 to take the test in grade 9. Because we're focusing on participation each year, those who did not pass in grade 8, they're counting this chart again. So as you can see, 101 students, or 59% of the remaining cohort, passed the Algebra ECA in grade 9, and that was just a little bit below the 2015 cohort at 65%. I do want you to look at the next slide, though, as we go into the same cohort in grade 10. So here you see that there were 76 students who took the Algebra ECA as retesters, meaning most, if not all, these students had taken the exam at least once before. 49% of these students passed. The average of the two previous cohorts, though, if you look at the 2014 cohort and the 2015 cohort, is 50%. So that shows that we are still on pace in getting students who struggle the most with algebra to pass that exam at the end of their sophomore year. Looking at the big picture, Plymouth High School is assigned a letter grade in part by the percentage of students in a cohort who passed the algebra exam by the end of their sophomore year. Again, by the end of their sophomore year. So 85.2% of the cohort for this year's junior class passed by the end of their sophomore year. If you look at the next slide, before I get into that, I do want to make one more disclaimer. If you are adding numbers along the way, it may not have made sense. The cohort percentage I'm sharing includes students who are enrolled at PHS at least 162 days during their sophomore year. For the grade 9 slide that I showed you earlier, I showed you all students who were at Plymouth High School in grade 9 who passed and participated. Not all those students necessarily may have been at Plymouth High School their sophomore year. The chart in front of you shows 4 different cohorts, the 2013, 14, 15, and 16 cohort, specifically the percentage of students who passed the Algebra 1 ECA by the end of the sophomore year. And you can note, it's not too small in italics, the respective cohorts' 8th grade ISTEP scores. Note that the 2016 cohort scored 8% higher than they did as 8th graders. The last cohort to best that growth was the 2013 cohort in terms of improvement by percentage. So I think that's something that I want to mention to you and make sure you take note of. As I mentioned before, the Department of Ed also grades Plymouth High School in part by our English 10 ECA scores, and Algebra 1 and English 10 carry the same weight in that overall calculation. For English 10, 209 of 257 students, 81%. That 2016 cohort passed the English ECA, and there's only one opportunity for students in that cohort to take that exam. If you look at the cohort and trend analysis, you can see the 2016 cohort was more or less consistent with the 2014 and 2015 cohort, with the 1% change each year from 2014 to 15, and then 15 to 16. We were happy to see that student scores were significantly above the 77% passing rate of the 2013 cohort. In addition, if you look in italics again, you can see the 8th grade scores, the percentage, and the cohort did perform better than they did as 8th graders with a 5% increase. The final chart of the presentation that I have displays the 2012 and 2013 graduation rate, along with the 2014 graduation rate. Students who just graduated last spring. If you remember last year at this time, I spoke to you about the number of dropouts that we had in the 2013 cohort. Tonight I present to you much better results. A lot of credit has to go to Mr. Olson and to PHS teachers who volunteered last winter to participate in a mentoring program. In the program, these teachers met frequently with at-risk graduates to provide support, guidance, and the occasional morning wake-up phone call to get to school. I remember the faculty meeting when we talked to teachers about here's a list of students that we think can make it, but they need an extra push. Who's willing to step up? And I think we all had a good idea, we being by the administrators, who would step up and how long that would take. But it took literally seconds before that list was full. And in the months that ensued, I think you really got to see a whatever it takes attitude as we work towards getting that graduation rate out. And we're taking that same idea to work this year for our 9th graders. Mr. Olson has spearheaded that program, deserves to be commended, along with a group of teachers who are working with our freshmen during homeroom and trying to have that same type of mentor-mentee relationship. The third factor that helps determine the high school's grade is the college and career readiness score percentage. The state defines that a college and career ready student has passed at least one AP exam or has earned dual credit in at least one course. A student can't be counted twice. I know that's a little confusing, so I'll repeat that. If a student has passed at least one AP exam or has earned dual credit, a dual credit sponsored course, then that student is considered college and career ready by the DOE. For the 2012 cohort, we were recognized by the state for a percentage of 34%. In 2013, we were at 39%, and the numbers I show you here today, 111 students of the 2014 graduates, it's 47% of the graduates last year met that benchmark. I think the numbers speak for itself. That's all I have for you. Any questions?
Ryan, with those cohorts and your graduation rates and so forth, what grade would you anticipate? I mean, any idea?
My projections.
It's embargoed.
My projections would be an A. So that's just a projection.
Well, I'm looking at that data, I would agree with that. I think that speaks very highly of it.
Great place, great kids, great teachers.
And you understand, he's seen the grade probably. But it's embargoed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good
Thanks,
report.
Question. 3.5, consider proposed course changes.
I think that's Mr. Condon and Mr. Condon, or who's?
Mr. Khan.
Mr. Condon?
Sure, I got you.
Okay.
And then our co-directors from WSI will be joining me. So we have a few to share with you. The first is a new combination math business course. The title of the course, the state-approved title, is Business Math. It's a business math. It's a course that integrates skills from both curriculum areas, mathematics as well as business. It's intended to provide core knowledge to potential entrepreneurs or business leaders. by giving them background in that particular area. You can see that it also contributes to individuals who might be interested in futures in accounting, banking, finance, marketing, and management. We think this is a good option for our students as they progress through their high school career, in addition to what we already have. Oh, Chinese. So you are aware that we are about to progress into our, it's hard to believe, our 4th year of our Chinese program. And we're working on our curriculum as we speak for a new course, Chinese 4, that we wish to offer to our students next year. We are doing some work towards eventually making this an AP course, but that work is long and tedious. We'll continue to work towards completion of that task. But for now, we're asking for approval to offer Chinese 4 next year. And I'll turn it over.
We are pleased to offer or present some new course offerings for the 2015-16 school year in the Widener School of Inquiry. And the first one is the second in a 4-course sequence of Project Lead the Way, courses that investigate the biomedical profession. This second course examines structures and interactions of human body systems. It will be taught in the Widener School of Inquiry, where project-based learning is the main method of instruction. However, it will be an elective that is open to all students in the high school, so they don't have to be in a cohort in the School of Inquiry to take that course. It receives vocational funding, and it is also a dual credit course. We have 2 courses that are going to comprise what we would consider the old honors, or it's now considered dual credit English option in the School of Inquiry for our seniors next year. It's kind of hard to believe we're going to have seniors in there next year in our first graduating class. This first course will earn 3 Ivy Tech dual credits, and it's going to build on the junior year course that actually starts next week. The junior year course focuses on college-ready writing, and this will build on that by focusing on college-ready research. The focus will be on theoretical writings that are authentic to different disciplines. The course provides an overview of multiple disciplines' writings. The second semester of this course will also offer 3 Ivy Tech dual credits, and it will focus on rhetoric and writing for specific audiences within different disciplines. The writing will focus on a purpose within a discipline. For example, what does a lawyer need to write? What does a doctor need to write? And the projects within this course will partner with professionals in different fields that the students are interested in, and hopefully tying that into their career pathway that we have on file in their guidance records. Any questions about those?
It does sound exciting. The more the junior high takes classes away from the high school, the you have to offer.
Right, we have to be very creative.
Those all the classes?
Yep, that's it.
Well, then I would recommend that we pass those classes and add them to our course of curriculum for next year.
And so move.
Second.
I have motion second. I apologize, I did have a question. Are we looking at minimum numbers for any of these classes in terms of participation?
On the traditional side, we attempt, if it's not a dual credit or AP course, we attempt to draw a cut at about 15 students. We attempt to.
I guess I should ask minimum or maximum.
Maximum, it varies. It could go as high as 28, 29, just depends.
The Project Lead the Way class is the second course in the sequence, so obviously the hope is all the students who will be starting next trimester in the first course, Principles of Biomedical Engineering, will want to continue. I I'm thinking those numbers are rough. We have two classes, periods, roughly around 40 maybe total. 46, so Mr. Copes is going to start that next week.
That's roughly around 40.
Yeah. Thank you. So hopefully they would like to continue on in that. And the 12th grade course, we have between 25 and 30 of our junior cohort enrolled in the junior AP class. The hope is they will continue on that track their senior year. Of course, that can vary widely from year to year, but that we have 2 English offerings in 11th and 12th grade within the Whiteman School of Inquiry, the regular and then the peer dual credit.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and second. Okay. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Thank you. Okay, moving on then to item 3.6, balance calendar.
You get the opportunity to listen to me tonight, sorry about that.
I mentioned while she's getting ready that Mr. Funston would have loved to have been here. His son had what he thought was going to be a minor shoulder surgery. It ended up being a tear. It had to be a pretty major reproductive surgery. And Dan asked permission to help his wife take his son home from the hospital. There was a lot of equipment that needed to go home. And he was in a lot of pain. And I said, absolutely. He sends his regrets.
Well, my purpose is tonight to refresh our memories about what a balanced calendar is and why this movement towards this type of schedule for schools. Share the community and parent results from last spring, discuss some pros and cons, and then ask for your approval to move forward, okay? Well, what is a balanced calendar? Just to refresh your memory, I think I said this a number of times during community member meetings, is not a year-round calendar. That was the old way of thinking and has come to be known now as a balanced calendar. What it is, it's 9 weeks of school with an extended break, some ranging from 7 to 8 days, others up to 2 weeks. It's still 180 days of school, depending on how you look at it. And breaks are used for the following: remediation. Typically, we do remediation in the summer, and also credit recovery, which is also done in the summer, but offering those throughout the school year to catch a kid up. And also, for those that don't need those two things, to have a vacation from school. Why the balanced calendar? Well, if you remember, we had a futurist named David Hooley come in, and he recommended to the board this type of schedule for better retention. Then we also have been watching a couple of the schools around and asked some information from them. And some of the schools we got from some information were from the Indianapolis schools as well as Rochester. And what you notice is that they do have improved academic achievement and other things that I'm going to share with you. The first thing is the test scores. When you look at this, a lot of this, the time spent in school is with a balanced calendar prior to them, the students taking an actual test. If we can get the kids in school more prior to all the testing, we get a better shot of them passing. They get more time on task with staff, working on the concepts that they have a test with. If we delay it and go into June, as what we typically have, that's after all the testing has been done. Our I-STEP testing is done in April, May. ECA is the same way all the way through. The more time we have with kids prior to testing, the better off we are. Also, these schools reported increased student and teacher morale. They also talked about decreased staff and student absences. They have really noticed that, especially in this time of financial crunch, that those absences, especially staff members, have really decreased. As well as the administration has shared with us that they've had a lot of discipline referrals drop and number of referrals coming to the office. Also, by the balance calendar, we're going to end the semester before Christmas vacation. That's our hope. And also, we want to stay consistent with schools and the vocational co-op. Other positives. Well, one that we keep hearing is it creates more time for those family vacations. Also, students can work to earn the money throughout the school year instead of just waiting until the summer. Teachers can arrange field trips and travel with groups of students through those breaks and those intersession times if need be, instead of taking class time to do so. Also, Mr. Schoaf has shared with us that would give him more time to work on those projects that he would normally wait until the summertime to do. And then I've had the opportunity to talk with Boys and Girls Club and our before and after school program, and they are ready and right on board with this, and they support this, and they said that they would be ready to take care of our students if we would go to the balanced calendar. Some negatives. Like everything, people hate that change. It is a different type of calendar, but we also have heard the negative, the loss of some two-a-day practices, and then also the state fair. But note that with the state fair, there's some legislation out there that we can grant permission for those students to miss class time to attend the state fair. When we called over to the high school to say how many missed it for the state fair this year, it is actually down from previous years. This year we only had 2 students attend the state fair. Normally there's 5 to 6, and quite a few years ago they had the most between 10 to 15. So it has been on the decline for that attendance. I've had the privilege of being involved with the parent and community input. Mr. Tyree and I were on the radio several times, or at least a couple times, to talk about the balanced calendar. We've had, as you can see in the news with WNDU, WSBT, we had television coverage about it, along with the pilot has had the news articles regarding the balanced calendar. We've held 3 community meetings. One at the elementary buildings, one at the middle level, and one at the high school. All attendees were surveyed. Survey results, you can see there, 75% were in favor of it, 2% were undecided at that time, and 23% were opposed. Then Mr. Tyree and I held informative meetings at every building, 7 of them. All the staff were surveyed, and at that time, 86% were in favor, 3% were undecided, and 11% were opposed. So you're probably wondering what our next steps were in this process. Well, tonight we're asking the board to approve the use of a balanced calendar for the 2015-16 school year. Then we'll go back after this approval and work with a vocational co-op on a base calendar. And in fact, Mr. Hansman will bring that to us at our next Jesse meeting and vocational meeting. And then we're going to meet with the committee to determine the following. How we're going to do professional development days. Is it going to remain the same, or is it going to be different? We'll look at how we're going to tweak it to fit Plymouth School Corporation. And then we'll determine how to make up those days. And then we'll bring back a specific Plymouth School calendar in February 2015. Does the board have any questions for me?
How many weeks would the longer break be, the summer break, per se?
9 days off of what we normally do.
Okay.
What was the answer, I'm sorry?
9 days off of what we normally do. 9 days are in the front.
Summer break is 8 weeks. Give or take.
Give or take.
Give or take. It would appear the positives far outweigh the negatives as far as looking at the balanced calendar.
Yes.
I know you said a calendar would be coming back, so so there is no traditional spring break. Or there is?
It'll be
There'll
2
be
weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. But roughly the same time frame.
Correct.
And the survey that you mentioned, this was all staff. How many were involved in the parent community, do you recall?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I can get that to you, though.
There were probably around 150 that had attended all 3 meetings.
Well, the surveys are at these meetings.
Yes. You know, we advertise these meetings, we got information in the paper, on the news, and ask people to come, said, you know, we want to survey what you think, but we don't want to survey until you've listened to what it really is, because so many people thought it was a year-round calendar. And so, it's about 150 that showed up.
Thank you. Laura has a comment. Did Laura have a comment?
Yeah, I remember. Typically, we just go around the board questioning comments, and I don't know if there are any other. Yeah, Laura, you wanted to make some comments?
Yeah, I was representing Plymouth Education Association. Just a couple things. When it comes to balanced calendar, most teachers that we're getting feedback from do support the idea, like Mrs. Reese said within that presentation, of a balanced calendar. However, I felt compelled to convey to you some concerns that teachers are bringing to PEA, including concerns about the starting date of the calendar. That they see it starting too early, possibly would like to look at pushing it back, whether it's a week or 2 weeks. I know one of the positives that was presented in the calendar of why go to a balanced calendar is that you can end the semester before Christmas. That's not possible if we push it back. It probably is not possible if we push it back a week, but yet there is some concern and some interest at looking at that option. The other things that people were concerned about would be the effect that it would have on the state fair. I know there was a mention of the Indiana code. I would love to see that code if you have a number and possibly get that number for the code. That could address that issue. Two-a-day practices have been brought up within different teacher meeting groups.
Probably not by the athletes, but.
Okay. Yeah. And then the summer break is still dependent on when the starting date is going to be, what professional development days are built in, if any, snow days that are built in. So given a number of summer days and vacation time, I think those things are hard to figure out right now. And those are the questions that many teachers have voiced to PEA is more of the details that go with it. But I thought it was important to bring that up, that there are still quite a few questions to address in that issue.
Yeah, I have a question. So I know to be determined, but maybe I missed it. What is the proposed start date that you're referring to?
Well, first of all, there isn't a proposed start date, but my commitment is to start in early August and end before June, so that we do have a 8-week summer vacation. And we do have time to do 2 sessions of summer school at the high school. That's a pretty important commitment, especially because of getting the summer school done at the high school.
Well, that was where I was headed with one of my questions, the effect or the ability to have some adequate summer school.
There have been some calendars going around, Oregon Davis calendar, and we actually shared that when they had proposed, but there's not a start date yet. Albert Hanselman is the vocational director, and he is taking input from all the schools, and he's going to put together a base calendar. And in the past, we've always had the opportunity to tweak that a little bit, and we will have the opportunity to tweak that a little bit more. But let me go back to something that Michelle said, and then maybe some of the principals can talk too. It's really important that we front load as many days as we can. It's more important to do that than 2-a-day practices, in my opinion. We have the PSAT test, which has become very important for dual credit, getting dual credits. And that is given in October. And so if we push the start of school further into August, it means less math and language arts time in the classroom for the kids before they take that test. If we push the school year back, as some PEA members have suggested, into June and start late in August, testing is almost all over. I think the AP tests are the last ones, and they are in May. ISTEP is in March and April, And so we really are using a lot of curriculum time after the tests have been given. And as little as we like it, tests are what we're graded on, and we have to be prepared for those tests. I spent time today with John Barron. He asked me to come over and talk to him. He is not opposed to the balanced calendar. This year our toughest game was Rochester. Second game of the season. They're on a balanced calendar. They had no two-a-day practices, and they almost beat us. And you can go down through the list and see all kinds of schools. Warren Central, state champion in football last year, balanced calendar. Columbus East ranked #1 in the state and undefeated presently on a balanced calendar. North Central tennis champions, balanced calendar. Boys soccer, Goshen, balanced calendar. Girls soccer, Fishers High School, balanced calendar. And there's a team in the volleyball state championships, West Doe, it's on a balanced calendar. It's not affecting athletics because, as Mr. Barron said, I have contact with the kids all year round now. And we all can have contact with the kids. It's not like it was in days past, and that's why two-day practices were so very important.
Well, can I ask a question on that point? Is there any, if we see, more schools going to a balanced calendar, is there any, you probably can't answer this, but is there any thought of when the moratorium would be, and any of that being addressed or changed?
The moratorium can be whatever, does the school decide their own moratorium?
The IHSA highly recommends that the moratorium be the week of the 4th. Schools may make a local decision to expand that.
Yeah, the state fair statute, I sent a memo out to the principals this year about the state fair statute, and the students had to be excused. We just don't have many people that participate in the state fair anymore. I just think for the good of our kids academically, we need to get them in classes as soon as possible and use as much of our curriculum time as we can. The PSAT is what determines the National Merit Finalist, which could be a full-ride scholarship for people. We just need, there are over 100 school corporations in the state of Indiana who are on the balanced calendar now. And there's probably 50 more that will be on it next year. And as I talk to superintendents, that is the main reason, is to front load our curriculum, because the testing dates have been pushed forward so far that we're measuring a year's growth. That's what they said, but we don't get a year to grow. So we've got to do all we can to push it back. Now, Warren Central starts July 28th. I don't want to get into that. My commitment to Warren EDA was we're going to start in August and we're going to end before June, and we'll have some flexibility and tweaking in there. And if we start the 4th or 5th of August, maybe some of the teams will get a couple days of two-a-day practices in. I don't know, but we want to, our teachers like to start in the middle of the week, and I don't blame them. I think when I was a teacher, I liked that too. But we don't have that yet, because the big thing is we don't have a base calendar from the vocational co-op yet.
Ken found the code that you'd sent out to all of us. The code is IC, it's 20-33-2-17.5. Thank you. No problem. No thanks to Ken.
You mentioned all these schools going to balanced calendar because of, PSAT, et cetera. Has there been enough time to measure the impact? Or know that that has an impact?
Well, it's not just the PSAT.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's all of those things, but, you know, last year, how many days did we miss of class time before we gave the ISTEP? And every year, we do the same thing, so is it measurable to show a causation? I don't know, but the schools that have been on it 3 or 4 years are all saying they're seeing improvement in academic achievement.
And I know yet to be determined, but Laura, just to make sure I understand your comments, there is support, but there's, you know, the devil in the detail type of questions. So there may be folks that prefer a later, even though, I mean, how, and I've always been somewhat cognizant or concerned, maybe too strong, of the semester going or ending right after Christmas. I mean, is that preferable to a week time in August to some? Is that what I'm hearing?
You know, and this is just me answering from being at the high school. I think that's something that needs to go further into discussion. You know, we've had our discussion meetings at the high school. There's usually just a small group that attends that because they are held after school. I think this is an issue that probably we need to have as a faculty, as a group, to be able to discuss a little bit. And to kind of clarify the start of what we're talking about, later start, I think the support is putting it to about where we start currently. So we're talking around the 11th as opposed to maybe the 4th, that there was some interest to do that. So it's not farther than what we're starting currently like we did this year. What they're looking at, because originally they were talking maybe 2 weeks, but they said that might cause some issues, put us too far into June. What about 1 week? Those were just some of the questions that they were asking. You know, probably the next step, and I think Mr. Tyree said that this will be the next step, is we get a calendar out there that represents Plymouth as a starting point and where we would put possible dates that are there. You know, we were given a Oregon-Davis calendar. It's hard to compare when you don't know those details to see what the vision is for this. And I think that's really what teachers are asking is to have a little bit better picture of the details. But yes, there is support for the concept of balanced calendar.
Mr. Condon speak about ending the semester.
Sure.
Yeah. So we met with discussion just recently, and we did have a few people that showed up, and they shared their concerns. I've been on both sides. I was on a semester calendar for years in a previous school, and I shared this with our faculty that was present. I've been in situations where we ended the semesters prior to Christmas, post-Christmas, etc. It always came back, regardless of how we moved it, it always came back to ending it prior to Christmas because of that lapse in time that students would face, that 2-week gap in learning. And if you're truly giving a comprehensive test, I think that makes it difficult to do, unless you have some really, really intense remediation and review when you come back from break. I think what Mr. Tyree shared is really important. You know, the inevitable situation is that, like it or not, we're held accountable by our students' performance on standardized examinations. And we are making a staunch push to help parents save money, keep money in their pockets, as we know more and more pressure is being put on them to send their children to post-high school educational facilities. That being the case, it's really important that our kids perform well in their dual credit classes as well as on their standardized tests to put themselves in positions to receive those benefits. The further we move the schedule back, my concern, the further we move the schedule back, the less actual learning days we have prior to those tests. I think that's important. I think we need to provide voice to people. We've done some of that. We have not had a whole group faculty meeting. Instead, what we've done over the last year is we've had small group meetings. We've had one-to-one meetings, we've had department chair meetings, we've had cluster meetings where people with common prep come down and talk. And teachers have shared pros and concerns and what-ifs and all of those things. You know, I think it's a big issue. I really do. I'm confident that in the end, because of the way that the school corporation works, which is always with the student in mind first and foremost, the right decision will be made.
Remember, we did, Mrs. Reese and I held a whole group meeting for every school with all teachers present and then surveyed.
Dave, is there any way to anticipate, this is not a driver, but just a question I have, I mean, does this type of calendar, would you anticipate any change in cost?
Well, historically, I've been using the June and July months as opportunities for us to save on operating costs. I'll cut our building schedules back to, say, 20 hours a week to save energy and control those costs. If we were to lose that June month where I would, eliminate those savings, we might see up to maybe around an 8% increase on our utility operating costs, because, in a $1 million budget, that would be a pretty noticeable sum for us to have to absorb. Typically, we start operating in August, full bore on air conditioning and getting things set up for school, and so that's a month where we really are running full production anyway. So, I guess we're already doing it for the fact that we are, I have to manage things like humidity in the classrooms, control the space, get it ready for classroom setup, have air conditioning for teachers for them to start the year. So, we're doing that already. So, but if we would lose that June, I think we would have to try to come up with other operational methods to save that money. So it would come at some additional cost to the district, it looks like, from the utility standpoint for us.
To start later.
Just to, if we were to go into June, to finish our year out into June, we would see some additional costs. So if we start that early into August, we're not going to have that cost in there because we've already been doing that.
I think in looking at one of our core values of doing what's best for the kids is a high priority, and I think the balanced calendar is a step in that direction. And I'd certainly recommend that we pursue it.
Other comments? Or I don't know if that's a motion or not.
I'll make a motion.
Second it. I'll second that motion.
We have a second as well. To approve the balanced calendar. Discussion.
And we are approving, pursuing this with inevitably something that's going to fit our school corporation.
Come back to this.
Well, I think every year we also have a calendar that comes that we approve, or I don't remember not approving one, but it will come back to the board for consideration.
I'll bring it back in February like I've done every year.
Well, given the, not significantly, we're going to get some indication prior to, or I guess I would request, some information along the way, or as opposed to the few weeks that we normally get. I mean, looking at a calendar that we've looked at for years is not that challenging, but to absorb something like a little more time.
Big change. It's big change.
All right. Motion and second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 3.7, 3-hour delay.
Yes, last week, or last month, just seemed like last week because I was off for a month. Last month, I brought the idea that I was wanting to use sparingly, a 3-hour delay. And there was some good discussion on the board about that. And so I said I would go back and survey the parents and staff, and so I did. I surveyed staff first, and I just posed to them the question, would you be in favor of using a 3-hour delay? The staff voted 88% in favor, 12% opposed. Parents voted 87% in favor, 13 opposed. Staff, we had about 95% participation in the vote. The parents, we had about 850 who voted, so a good number of parents who voted. So I would plan to go ahead and use the 3-hour delay, but my promise to you is that I would use it sparingly and only to save a day if I thought we could.
I think that answers the questions we had.
Do we need to take action on this?
No.
It's not an action item. Are there any questions? Or, I mean, if we voted, it would have to be 87% of us. I guess we've talked about this before and talked about in the last meeting. I think the key word there is sparingly, and I don't see this as I think we need to be prepared. 3-hour delays is not guaranteed that at the end of 3 hours we have a clear vision that, I mean, it could end up as being a canceled day, and I think people need to realize that that could happen because expectations could be, well, we're not going to see that happen. But we know we're not in control of Mother Nature.
I am very cognizant to parents and parents who work and parents who have kids. And if you remember the last several years, especially last year, if there was a foregone conclusion in the evening that we couldn't have school, I went ahead and canceled it so parents could make arrangements for babysitters. And I will continue to be cognizant of that fact. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that some parents have to leave their house. They can't stay home and wait. And so kids are there by themselves. And so I'm very aware of that, and I really try to do what's best for kids on those mornings, and it's difficult, and sometimes I think people could hear my voice last year was very stressful. First time I was dealing with kidney disease and didn't know it either, but I pledge to all of you that I will continue to be very cognizant of all the factors that go into calling the school day off or sending kids home early, which is probably worse. Because then you're sending them home to a house that's sometimes locked and they can't get in.
Okay, thank you for the follow-up. Item 3.8, enrollment report.
Yep. Get my computer to come back on here. Yeah, I'll just turn it on right up here. The ADM report is up here. It's the average daily membership. And this is a little misleading because kindergarten only counts as half on an ADM chart. And so this is what our tuition dollars will be based on. We also then get a grant for the other half of kindergarten. It's not quite as much as the first half, which makes me wonder why they call it half. But you see our ADM this year, the subtotal was 3589, dual role enrollment, full-time equivalency, 0.28. I'm not sure that's a student taking a class here. And the total ADM, column 7 and 8, it ends up being 3589.28. And so there will be another count in February. We already had one count. This was the count. And It was a little bit higher than what they expected for it to be, so there will be a makeup time. When will that makeup come as far as state tuition?
I have to remember my chart.
Approximately.
November.
Approximately November. And then there will be a February count, and we will get a new tuition dollar based on that. And fortunately, we have been growing since then. So I think we've reversed the trend we saw the last couple of years where we actually decreased between the September and the February count. We still have a few months to go. Any questions about this? I know it does say cash transfers, but we voted a few years ago that we're not going to charge tuition. So as you can see there, we have 253.5 students who come to Plymouth who don't, this isn't their primary residence. And that's almost a class, a full class. Our classes, as you can see over there, range from 262 to 326. So if it weren't for those 253 students that we bring in as cash transfers, we would not be as incredibly good shape that we're in now compared to other schools.
In real numbers, it's 263.
Yes, yes, real numbers.
How does the total compare to last year?
I have an enrollment chart next, and we'll go to that. I'll show you that way we're really counting kid to kid. All right, go to the next chart, please. This is our enrollment chart from 2008, 2009. It's when I became superintendent. I went back that far just because those are the numbers that are relevant to me. And as you can see, each year our enrollment has increased. This year it increased 35 students. So from 2008, 2009 to the 2014, 2015 school year, our enrollment has grown 243 students. Now, if you remember that last chart, our cash transfers were 253. So you can see primarily where our growth has been. Not necessarily in people moving into Plymouth and settling down and raising their kids here, but people, the marketing we've done, people in other communities saying, I want my kids to go to Plymouth because. This year we grew 35 students, and as you can see, that's pretty typical. We had that one year in 2011, 2012 where we grew 105. But that particular year, we did have a lot of people move into Plymouth.
And these are real numbers.
These are real numbers.
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. I think it's something we can all be very proud of, and I think that the reason that we can give raises is because we are increasing students. At Triton the other night, they had a program called Saving Our Schools, and they were talking about the decreasing enrollment in all the area schools, but they weren't talking about us because we're growing.
Any questions? Thanks, Dave. I hit the wrong button again. Item 3.9, consider second reading revised policies and guidelines. These were introduced at our last meeting. I know Dan typically speaks to those. So.
Well, Dan indicated that he hadn't gotten any questions from the board members between the last meeting and this meeting. So unless there are questions now, then I would recommend, since this is the second meeting that we vote to pass these.
I would entertain such a motion.
I make a motion to pass the revised policy guidelines.
Second.
Motion second, any comments? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Section 4, superintendent remarks.
Yes. For the visitors in the audience, I go through the core values for Plymouth Community Schools, and I talk about something that happened during the last month that is relevant to the core values, each of the core values. So our first one is our commitment to students. And I think Mrs. Mills and Mrs. Reese are big pat on the back. They got the Title III money. I think that was reported at the very last meeting. And we already have a Title III preschool up and going. So that is an ESL class being taught, and it is at capacity. There is a waiting list, and the aide and the teacher are both bilingual. And the research says the best way to teach ESL students is in a bilingual setting. So not only did we get a preschool class up and running that fast, we got one that is best based on research for best practice. Second is caring. I don't know how many people were able to get down and see it. The Marshall County Museum had an open house to display the new living history exhibit recently finished by the WSOI students, and I spent about an hour and a half at the museum that day, and just listened to the husbands, the wives, the widows of World War II veterans who came to see the display, and being able to do something like that for our community, it was really very, very, very touching because it meant a lot to those people. And some of those people I've been friends with for a long time, and it's always nice when a school corporation can reach out and touch its community like that. High expectations. Both the 7th and 8th grade football teams won the conference championship, and I think we can celebrate that. That's maybe we have some other championships coming our way. While our varsity football team is still undefeated and playing for a sectional championship this weekend, Friday night, right here on the rock pile, so we're excited about that. Mr. Barron would like to get his first sectional championship. He's going to need a lot of you out there cheering him on. Teamwork. The St. Joe Regional Medical Center is hosting an injury-free clinic for any student-athlete who would like to attend. This is every Monday, and it's another great example of the partnership that we have with St. Joseph Regional Medical Center. And I see Loretta is here, so we'll send a shout out to her. Thank you very much for your part in this and being a great partner with Plymouth Community Schools. We really appreciate it. Integrity. All schools showed their support for the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I think the reason that I put this under integrity is under that we talk about walking the walk and talking the talk, and when every school and commitment is made to show support for something as important as this is to our lives, it models something for our kids that's very important. And sometimes it's more than English and algebra that kids need to learn. It's that servant leadership. And so I would like to thank all the schools for modeling that in Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Enjoyment. The PHS Spell team, coached by Amy Schmeltz, won another conference championship early this month. Freshman Autumn Wilson led the team with a near-perfect score, and Anna Piazza spelled 7 out of 9 words correctly, and Mrs. Dotson found a spelling error in my first version of that, which I thought was ironic. I was never on the spell team. I would like to say some good news is that just today we got the Title I grant, and there's enough money in that we can do the Title I preschool that we've already gotten permission to do contingent on funding. So I told Mrs. Mills as long as that was operating by Monday morning, that would be soon enough. They'll start working on that now, and hopefully by the next meeting we can have that up and running. December 2nd is our next meeting. There's an executive session where I will meet with the board to do staff evaluations for administrators and directors. And then December 2nd at 7 o'clock, there will be the next and last school board meeting of the year. And we will also provide some pizza and pop for the board members that night, since they're coming in early and probably missing their. That's all I have.
May I make a comment?
Please.
As a board member and parent and father of a family, I'd like to express our deep appreciation to Coach Dell and his staff for a phenomenal tennis season. We were privy to going down to DePaul on Saturday. He was chosen as the coach of the Northwest All-Stars. And as many of our coaches do, he not only teaches tennis, he goes far beyond that. And he's doing a phenomenal job of juggling being a parent, a father, an administrator, a teacher, and a coach. Thank you.
And like Mr. Dell, he's never said a word to us. Very humble.
Congratulations.
Any other comments? I unfortunately could not and did not be able to attend the play, but over the weekend I heard very good reports on that as well. So I don't know how many folks that are involved it takes, and I'm sad I couldn't get there, but congratulations to all those folks as well. Any other comments or questions from folks in the audience?
I have a couple of questions about the 3-hour delay. If indeed you had to send children home before 4 o'clock, does that nullify?
It would nullify that, yes.
Okay, so then you, and then the Chinese teacher, will we still have that reciprocal thing from Valparaiso to get a teacher? Is that?
Well, this is Meg Wan's last
Right.
year, so we are working on getting another visiting teacher from through the Valparaiso program,
Okay.
and so we'll move from there. This year, remember, we had to expand to a teacher and a half, so we're going to have to look at our registration numbers closely, because we might need 2 visiting teachers. And it would be nice to get a teacher that's not visiting who could stay and live here and be a resident and teach for us.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah.
I have one I'm a little confused about. Maybe I'm just reading into it wrong. But Dave Schoaf commented earlier that if we start at the beginning of August with the balanced calendar, it will make better use of money being spent on air conditioning and electricity that is being used to prepare the schools a couple of weeks ahead of the start date to get ready for the school year. Now, no matter when you start, don't you always have those expenses? Because if you start the middle of August, as traditionally been, he said the first 2 weeks are spent using electricity and air conditioning, going, as he said, full board to prepare for the school year. Won't that just be pushed back 2 more weeks and that money still be used?
Not the way the balanced calendar works, Bobby, because the time when what Laura was talking about was still talking like a week and a half or 2 weeks into August. And so we're already starting 2 weeks into August, but because of the breaks that we would be taking, that would push it into June. So if you don't move your days back, then it's going to cost more to air condition the building.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.